allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. So we do have a couple of special presentations. We are trying to get the technical side coordinated properly. So, but today will be the Persons of the Year Awards, as well as the District Communications Committee presentation as well. So the next meetings on June 10th, there will be representatives from Valley View Athletics to celebrate their extracurricular and Java juniors. On June 24th, Dr. Forte, Dr. Cullis, and New Jersey school boards will be discussing and presenting district goals for this year and also to set goals for next year. And we'll also do a self-evaluation at that point as well. And then July 15th, we'll have another presentation for the full year HIB data, HIB SSD data. So as we have folks come in, we'll go ahead. Once the dust settles, we'll get started.
Okay, everybody. Thank you. Great to see everybody. We're going to do the Persons of the Year first, and then we're going to have Ms. Marinello's Communications Committee give their report to the board. So we're going to start off. I'm going to move over here so I can stand up. I feel weird sitting like this. Let's start off with Mrs. Theodoropoulos and Mr. McCabe. If you wouldn't mind, come on up. And if you have any other people that you want to bring up with you, that's fine.
Everyone here representing Officer Kerner, stand up and join us up here because we got a lot of. Go ahead, you're here.
Use this.
Thank you.
It's on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
There we go.
Got the whole team up here and a whole lot more. We could fill up this whole room, but I'd like to talk a little bit about Officer Kerner. I asked him to write a bio if he could for himself. He gave me 4 lines. Okay, so I'm going to read those 4 lines. John Kerner served as a police officer for the Lyndhurst Police Department for 25 years. He retired in December of 2017 as a detective lieutenant. John was hired by the Denville Police Department on August 24th, 2020, as a Class 3 law enforcement officer to work in the Denville schools. John is married to his wife, Heather, and their 3 beautiful children, Grace, Michael, and Olivia. And that's what he wrote.
All right. Can you hear me, Tim?
I can.
All right, great. We'll do it. It'll be a little echo, but we'll make it work.
Sorry about
All right,
this.
so let me speak a little bit about Tim. Tim is an attorney with Einhorn Barbarito, who has worked with our mock trial club for 15 plus years and also arranged for $1,200 donation for all that time. And Tim is now leaving Einhorn to move on to a different job, and he will not be working with us anymore. He has been a tremendous asset for our Valley View students, and I just wanted to make sure that we got a chance to talk to him. He's out of state right now at an important business, so we can't really speak to him too long, but I just wanted to make sure we got a chance to say hi. Maybe you could see the award, Tim. We're going to put that in the mail.
Dr. Forte.
We're going to put that in the mail. You also have a $200 gift card to Casabella in Denville.
Thank you very much. It's
So thank you for everything. And I know you're pressed for time, but if you want to say something quick, that'd be fine.
Sure, absolutely. I appreciate the honor, Dr. Forte, the Board of Education. I've been blessed to have the opportunity to work for approximately 15 years and volunteer in the Denville schools. I can certainly say from my time that the students and the citizens of Denville are fortunate to be part of such a wonderful district. It's been a wonderful opportunity for me to be able to volunteer and work alongside the faculty, the Board of Education, and all the students. So I appreciate the honor and the recognition. I regret that I'm no longer with Einhorn Barbarito. My understanding is that the firm will continue to support the Denville schools, and I will do whatever I can to continue that support as well. But thank you once again, and I appreciate the honor.
Thank you so much, Tim. We don't want to keep you too long. I will mail your stuff out tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Board of Education. Thank you, Dr. Forte.
Thank you.
Take care.
Hello, good evening. As you guys know, I'm Sue Marinello. I'm a communications consultant. I've been working with the Denville Township School District for about 3 years. And last spring, you determined a goal for the district. And as a result of that goal, Dr. Forte reached out to me. We created a communications committee. 3 of our members of the communications committee are here this evening with us. And this is the final report and recommendations. Well, an overview of it. You actually have a very big report and recommendations, but I'm going to try to move quickly through the high points of what's in that report. Okay, so district goal number 4, develop a plan for consistent and streamlined community communications. That was the goal that Dr. Forte reached out to me regarding, and we talked about it and thought there were 2 components that we really wanted to put together for that. And one was to create a survey, and one was to have a communications committee to help us to analyze that survey. So the communication committee had goals to identify district communication strengths and areas of improvement, and to identify needs and potential solutions to enable consistent and streamlined communications, and to come here tonight and to make that presentation. And I think that the understanding that we had coming into this, the communications committee and myself, is that there are a lot of platforms for communications that are happening throughout the district. And that's not unusual, because districts start to find new things to new tools to work with, and they start to implement them, but it's not necessarily consistent across the district. So then lots of different forms of communication committee. The first communications committee meeting was in February. That was a fantastic meeting. Everybody came to the room ready to communicate and ready to analyze and ready to look for the best path forward. And they left there actually doing research and coming back with lots of different ideas, sending emails back and forth saying, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? So when we came together in March, we really drilled down on those recommendations and started to create the recommendations that would be given to you in this report that we're presenting tonight. And they created sort of their dream idea of what communication should be. And then we met again in April for that final meeting, and then we're here tonight. So the communications committee, 10 people, there they are in a room. Sure.
Will you advance it? Yes. On the Google Meet? Yes. Change it.
Cindy's changing.
Okay. You're going to advance when she advances, right?
Go back one. Oh, not me. I'm good. Okay, great. All right, so the 10 members of the committee came together for the very first meeting, and I just want to point out that at that meeting, when they came in with so much excitement and really ready to look at what we were going to present, they started to really analyze the data that came out of the survey. They discussed that data in terms of their own experiences. And this is where the committee was invaluable. To form this committee was what really forms the foundation of how we can move forward, because we can look at data when it comes in. It didn't actually tell us the whole story, because some of the ways that people were responding to the survey, they were confused. When you asked about Facebook, they thought one thing when it was actually something else. This committee was able to really drill down on what those comments meant, what they were referring to, and helped us to identify the platforms that we were going to make the recommendations for. So the survey that went to the community, 286 people responded to it. The survey was about what communication methods are being most frequently used, which methods are preferred, and how people are receiving those methods. In other words, do they like it? Is it working for them? What is their response and their reaction to them? And then also what recommendations they would have. So the 286 people were primarily parents, and then 16% of them were faculty, and then we had other people in the community as well. And you can see on the side there, Valley View, Lakeview, Riverview, entire district, central office, Morris Knolls. People did participate from across the community. And our communications committee, which was put together by our administrative team, Dr. Forte, and they were 10 people plus the technology department sent a representative to each of our meetings, which was extremely helpful, because the communications don't happen without technology. And what's happening on the back end to put those communications in place really relies on that particular team of people. So when we had questions, we were able to turn to them and say, well, what happens if you're pulling this kind of a list from Genesis? Or what if you're using Constant Contact? Or how are you dealing with YouTube, or whatever the question was? And they were there to help us. Again, this was a group of parents, faculty, and parents who are faculty, and a community engagement partner. And the big picture of all of this, all the surveys, 85% of the respondents felt that current communications are effective or very effective. So that's a pretty good stamp of approval. And I know from having worked with you for 3 years that this is a goal for every member of the board, for every member of the administration, and I actually believe for all of your faculty. To communicate clearly with the students, with the families, is really important. And my absolute favorite quote that I've ever seen on any survey is, "I think communication is very thorough. Thank you for asking." So we felt really good about that. But again, we brought this committee together to look at where improvements in streamlining could occur. So the committee looked, based on the data and the comments and how they were able to interpret those comments, what those comments were really referring to, they were able to come up with rationale and recommendations for streamlining and consistent communications based on procedures and platforms. Procedures being how we do something, platforms being the tools that we would use to put the communications out into the community. And sort of the foundation from the survey that was created was these types of comments that came in. Consolidated information found in one place rather than bits and pieces from multiple people and sources. There are too many platforms of communication. It's better to simplify so that people have one outlet. There are so many ways to find the information. It can be overwhelming to know where you read something and then try to go back and find it again. And I wish there was school-specific communication. So that was really pretty much our foundation. How do we meet those areas? 85% we're working really well and things are going really well. But how do we help the people who are somewhat confused, or how do we help to make the platforms that are somewhat confusing more direct? Of note, simplify, streamline, consistency, develop a source of information, adhere to the one-click rule, standardize communication options, choose platforms that are easy to use and consistent across the district. And that should help to alleviate some of that confusion. And again, as this committee was talking, we actually found some of the holes in the procedures where, for example, email. Your school messenger email, that alert system, that seems to be working really well. But sometimes administrators or faculty members are using different types of communication, and they might be trying to communicate with the same group of people, but for whatever reason, it's not consistently being pulled into that other platform. So to look at what the internal procedures are, what there also can be human error. I mean, I myself deal with this every day, and I just this week had a parent call and say, I'm not getting the emails. And I looked and they had unsubscribed. So to help the community understand what the procedure is and what their role is in that procedure too, to make sure that across all platforms, the procedure internally is pulling the names and the data incorrectly, and to make sure that if someone is not receiving the information, that they know where to go and how to talk to the district to make sure that that can be corrected. So again, big book we have here, lots of rationale, lots of recommendations, but I'm going to take a minute on the website because the website, the comments that we had were very, that it was confusing, that the website is very confusing, and that the website and the app are not really giving people the information in a friendly way, or that it's difficult to navigate. And the website could be the basis of all of your information. So if you think of the website as the umbrella of information where people know they can go and find that information, then whatever you're sending out should be accessible on the website. So that's the basic recommendation for the website. And a couple of things to keep in mind about a website is that it is the information for your school community, but it's also the information for the community at large. For example, if grandma wants to come to the play tonight in Riverview, but grandma doesn't really know where Riverview is because she lives somewhere else, she ought to be able to look and see where that is. If the calendar isn't up to date, then she can't find that information. And it's also, your website is also really important for people outside of this community who might want to move to this community, because the reason people choose to come somewhere is the schools, and they do check that out. So again, you want to really keep that up to date. And in this, we did also include resources and research. One of the things that I did, because we had talked about it, is I reached out to a web designer and asked her to map your current district and school websites. And because of the amount of information, she really couldn't easily dig into it. But what she did do is look at what she thought the goal and intention of the website is, and she created a sample map for the district and each of the schools. This may not be exactly what you want it to be. You may find you need to change it, but it gives you a way to think about it. One of the things I find with the website is it's like a filing cabinet. If you put everything in it, then you start to have so much in it, you can't get more in it, and you can't find anything. So you want to clean things out along the way so that the information is current, and that when people are searching, they're not finding something from 2005, they're finding something from today. The mobile app, interestingly, a lot of people don't know it exists. Those who do find that it's not really working the way apps are, they're used to having apps work. So in other words, the technology has changed. Whenever the app was created, it was probably rather cutting edge for a school district to have. But apps have changed. So when people come to this app, they're seeing something that's not really working the way other apps work. So it's something that could be updated. It's something that could be, again, current information, and to identify the things that the parents really need to see: forms, lunch, holidays, calendar events, all of those things, and make sure that that information is what they can get at their fingertips. Learning management system. This was the biggest surprise, I think, for us. We didn't ask in the survey about a learning management system because Denville doesn't have one. But what we discovered is one of my kids' teachers uses Class Dojo to send photos and reminders. It's a wonderful value add to the district communication. And a faculty member said, I wish there was a universal communication tool that stretched across all 3 schools for staff to share information to parents aside from email. I use Remind and other teachers use other apps, but a universal messaging system would allow consistency across all 3 schools. This may be the most effective communication tool you could put in place. Your community likes it. Apparently your faculty is looking to communicate in this way because we got a number of comments that indicate that that is so. And it could be the thing, you're struggling with social media. I mean, everybody is, not just this district, but everybody's thinking, how do I get the information out there? But a one-to-one learning management system might be the thing that could help you the most. And the interesting thing about this is there's lots of different kinds. They fulfill many different possibilities within your organization. So we recommend that the district really look at the different platforms that are out there, see what might meet their needs, talk to survey the faculty and see how they're using it and why they think it's important, and then evaluate if there's something you'd like to put in place. And one of the big things about it is it keeps a record of those conversations that parents are having with faculty and the faculty are having with parents. And also, many of them translate. So if a faculty member wants to say, Johnny's having some difficulty with multiplication, could use some extra support, when it gets to the parent and that parent speaks Swahili, it's translated. And the parent can be typing in Swahili and it gets back to the faculty member in English. So it's a really powerful possibility of tools to use. Across the board, your school messenger alerts are working really well. School messenger is your basic alert system here in the district. They do text, phone, email. Texts, people love. They absolutely love them. They're used by 77.6% of the people. They're preferred by 80% of the people who took this survey. And some of the things that people asked for were more texts. They want, and again, we're going to recommend that you do a survey and make sure that there's total buy-in across the district. But in more than one instance, they mentioned, we just want to know quickly with a text what's happening in Valley View tonight. And this may be the way to remind people that there's a parent program going on tonight or that there's a concert, and just a quick little text to let people know what's happening. Important to remember, don't tell them in a text to check an email because they may have unsubscribed from email. They may not get the email. This is where that website overview, if you want them to look further for more information, give them the link to that particular page on the website. Some people did say that they've tried to sign up for text alerts. Again, they had a problem. This is, again, where you want to really educate people on what that procedure is and make sure that they're getting it. Sometimes people can be difficult. Sometimes people think, oh, they didn't send it to me because they don't want to send it to me. And the reality is that is absolutely not true in this district. You want them to get everything. So to just keep communicating that with them so that they understand you're trying to get it to them. And then school messenger email, we've talked about email and that procedure. It's working great on school messenger. It's some of the, or it seems to be, but it's some of the other email type platforms that there seems to be some confusion with. So just to drill down on what that is. And also with email, not to attach a PDF for several reasons. One is, on your phone, the PDF is really difficult to open and then get back to the email. Some people can't do it at all on their phones. I don't personally tend to have a lot of trouble with that, but I meet people every day who just can't make it happen. So they're not getting the information. Additionally, a PDF attached to your email may be flagged and sent to trash, so then they don't get any of the information. And then two, a PDF is not translatable, but an email can be, particularly through School Messenger. So if you have information, rather than attach it, put the information in the email. That way they can get it, they can open the email, they can read it. They don't have to do another step. And phone calls, people, it's working very well. People appreciate them across the board with all of the School Messenger alerts. If it's something like snow, they want the official notification to come from phone call, email, text, rather than be put on social media first. So that's one thing to keep in mind. We got that comment several times, and particularly from the faculty, because they're not allowed to go on to social media during the day in their classrooms, and then they don't really know what the answers are and the answers out in the community, and they're kind of in the dark. So to try to change that particular procedure would be helpful. And then there is a little bit of conversation about the nature of the phone calls. So the district brand is some fun phone calls, and people love them or they don't. It's split very much down the middle. So you have to decide which way you want to go as a district on that. Some people think they're really fun. Some people think it sort of interrupts their day and they're not getting the information. They have to listen to too much while they're at work to get to what the point of the call is. And I don't think that's always, because I don't think you use that all the time, but that is a comment that did come up. And of course, today you can also do ADA with AI, ADA compliance with AI, so you can type it out and then it can send that phone call in any language. Facebook, again, our committee, they figured this out. People came back, they were like, yeah, we love Facebook. 43% of the people use it. They think it's really great. What they were talking about is the PTA Facebook pages. So great. Let's see if you can create a relationship with the PTA to put out the information you want to put out, to have them to share, to repost everything that you put out, that Dr. Forte puts out on Facebook. Just ask them if that can be part of their procedure, so that information is really reaching more people on the platform that the people seem to be looking at. Twitter and YouTube. Twitter is really not getting a lot of play, but it is actually stronger for Dr. Forte than most Twitter feeds currently are for school superintendents. He has a good following and people do like and repost what he puts out there, but it's a small percentage of your population that's looking at it. Still in all, I think it's not a bad thing to have that presence. And if you needed a social media platform in the future for some reason, you don't want to lose what you already have. So I think that this is probably a really good way to keep that information going. In terms of YouTube, we know that this district uses YouTube sort of as a repository of the official meetings. This is going to be on YouTube, and that's great. But there are people who actually would like to see some student things. If there's organically something happening in the curriculum where you are filming and you think it's something that could go up on YouTube, that would be another possibility. I don't know, as through the work that we did and as a communications consultant, I'm not sitting here recommending you make sure you get every student out on YouTube, because I don't know if that fits with your curriculum and your mission. But if it does, it could be something that really sort of showcases the kinds of work that the faculty is doing and the kinds of achievement that the students are making. Friday folders, again, this comes back to the website. Maybe let's simplify it into the website as a page. I know they're right now in folders. The PDFs don't seem to be working for people. It's that PDF problem again on your phone, trying to click through. So to revisit that and streamline that into a page on the website, and we did a lot of research on that and put some information together in that research section of the booklet. And email newsletters. People like certain ones. They actually the committee looked at what people were saying about it and then looked throughout the district at the emails that are working and suggest that that would be the kind of format to look at, such as Dr. Forte's Friday email, or I think there's one from Valley View that has a lot of bullet points in it. So mostly emails are fine. People are fine. It's just making sure that those platforms are getting to the correct people based on that procedure of how to get your name in the right list. So that's basically the booklet. And then just to highlight again, there's lots of examples of research, how to work with the Friday folders, the newsletters. We also put worksheets in there with the rationale and the recommendations and a column for implementation so that you can look at the possibilities for moving forward on the items that you choose to move forward with. overall, look at that website, centralize the email procedure, simplify the Friday folders, rethink social media, get those PTAs on board for reposting, possibly look at the learning management or one-to-one messaging system and use the one-click rule. And I want to thank an incredible, incredible team of people who gave a lot of time and thought, because they really do feel that what you do in this district, what they're part of, is important, and they want to share it with as many people as possible. And I've really enjoyed working with them because their dedication was over the top. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I do think a round of applause is.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before I open it up to the board for questions, I really want to thank you and the committee as well. The amount of time that you must have put into this is astonishing, because the deliverables that you are presenting today is very thorough, very comprehensive, and I'm very impressed with what you have presented. So, I deeply appreciate the time and energy that all of you have put into this. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Any board members that wish to open up with questions?
I just want to thank you guys as well. It's kind of nice to have all this data. There's a lot of conclusions you came to that I kind of suspected or were gripes of my own. So I appreciate actually having data to back it up. In particular, I think the mobile aspect of things is something that really gets overlooked. There's a lot of things that I try and I can't make it work on my phone, and that's my primary way of getting information. And I like that you stumbled on the calendar issue and things too, because I remember trying to find dates for things and finding plays from 2000 when I'm looking it up, and not being able to find the current play that I want to find out when it's at. So I'm gonna sift through this for a while, but I appreciate having all that ammunition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
And I think that 85% of the respondents felt the current communications were effective, very effective. That's a real high score when you do this type of survey. So that's really good. We're on the right track. Obviously, there's always some opportunity areas which you highlighted here. So the 12.9%, I'm guessing that some of the comments, some of the fine tuning came from that group of people. Well, I mean, there was some commonality and consistency. They all said the same thing.
Right. We actually combed through and categorized every single comment that was made and looked at how they related to each other, whether they were talking about the same thing or whether there was confusion in what they were talking about, and analyzed that, and then really drilled down on what platform they were talking about.
Yeah, my last comment was on the duplicate info. I've been around a long time, and that was probably a bigger problem in the beginning when I first started. Just, it was here, there, and everywhere. You couldn't find it. So I think it's improved, but it should be perfect. You should be able to get the information in one spot. It's current, it's correct, and it's easy to find.
That is always the goal. I will say it's a challenge for school districts because you're not running a website. It's not Amazon. You're not making $1 billion every second and you got 200 people working on your website to make sure you can make $1 billion every second. It's a school district that's here to educate the students, and the mission is to help them excel. But this is something you have to have. So to look at the ways that you might be able to make that happen so that you can reach for perfection, that's what we're all going for. Thank you.
Yeah, Susan, I was going to make that exact same comment, that I'm actually, first of all, thank you to everybody for pulling this together. I think this has been a project we've been talking about for a long time. And the outcome here is just a wealth of information. So I truly appreciate it. And I think I thought the same thing. I said, we don't have anybody that's sitting here trying to like feed all these different buckets. And we've talked about this. I think Dino and I had this conversation quite a few times about like, you know, you need that single source of truth that way. And how do you relate it back? I think you've come up with some great suggestions and give us a lot of good data. And some of it I could have predicted, some of it I would not have predicted. So I think that's the great part here, is that I think there's some things that came out that, and I'm only one person, right? So I don't see as much. And I think that things that I thought were more important to me weren't as important to others. So I really appreciate it. I guess my one question is, any suggestions on how to distinguish like the PTA, it's not even the PTA groups, to be honest with you. They're literally just private parents that are running certain Facebook groups. How do you distinguish certain pieces of it so they know, like, this is the district, this is the PTA, this is a group of parents that are just trying to do the right thing and get communication and a dialogue going. But how do you distinguish the different groups? Or do you try to pull them together and say, let's just try to work together more closely, and particularly the PTAs? I think we could probably do a better job of that.
I think, first of all, social media is that. It's exactly what you say. And, some districts, even within their district, the official platform that they're using, the official page that is theirs, there might be 10 of them, because there's an official in each school, each coach has one, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really important to stop and think who they are, where they are, what's out there, what exists, and identify what you would consider to be official. Obviously, if your coach has one, we're going to hope that that's an official voice from the district. So you want to identify them and then figure out how they can work in concert with each other. And it's not so simple necessarily, but your PTAs, people are looking at those, and it's almost the same as if they sent out an email newsletter called, every Tuesday or whatever. If you wanted to have information in that, you would ask them, put this information in that email. Well, now really where they are is on Facebook. So ask them to share everything that you post officially. And that's one way to get that information out there. Also talk to them about putting the events out consistently, whether or not that can be done within the district and then that information gets shared too, or whether you're just saying, hey, can you make sure that all of the official things that are on the calendar actually happen and are seen on your Facebook pages?
Yeah, that's really helpful. And then one other thing I would just mention is the challenge of Oprah and the challenge of a board, and what we can communicate as individuals versus a board becomes very difficult. I feel like I've been on the board for 10 years now, and every time I think I understand it, I read another like case law about somebody that posted something on social media from a board member perspective and how it comes across. So we try to do just that. I think that's great advice, because I think that's what we as board members try to do, is just put links and repost, because that's official information. And as opposed to kind of trying to get it, once you get into a dialogue on social media, as you know, gets really kind of tricky for us. So I appreciate the feedback and appreciate all the information. I'm going to spend some time reading the 81 pages you've pulled together. So thank you.
In only 3 meetings, but they did a lot of work on their own.
I have to just admit, though, that I just liked our own Denville Township Schools Facebook page, and I'm just like, how have I not liked this page? I thank you for all the work that you've done. I'm definitely going to dig into that 81 pages, and I'm honestly excited to see how we can improve moving forward. So thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
I'd like to also repeat, thank you to the entire committee. This is tremendous. And I think, as other members have said, some of this we saw, some of this we thought, some of this is a surprise. One of the things that is my biggest takeaway, and I felt this for a long time, is that we have too many channels. I mean, I experienced this at work. Did somebody Slack it to me? Did they email me? Did I get a text? And then I have to go find out, where that thread was. So, I mean, I think we can make some, with your data, I think we can make some choices about things that maybe we can winnow away. One good example, and I wanted to ask your opinion about this, was the website versus the app. Like if we had a mobile responsive website, could we do away with the app? Like is that something that maybe the app is just like a bridge too far to get people to download? Is that something that we then have to keep up?
And it depends. There are a lot of platforms out there right now. Aptogy is a website that came from an app. The guy who founded it he wanted to make sure he knew where his nephew's concert was. So he created an app and then said, oh, I need to have a website to go with that. So that is sort of their business model. And they seem to do that pretty well. Some platforms do it really well. Others are just literally pulling from their website platform, and it doesn't translate over as well. So it's a matter of looking at what you have. And two, I do want to point out that with all of these things, it means your IT department has to really be involved because you already have systems set up. Are those systems going to have to change dramatically if you make a huge change? And if so, what does that mean? Because you only have so many resources in terms of man hours and hands that can do the work. So it's not just one variable. There's a lot of things. But yes, you may find that the app doesn't work for you, although people are trending towards only apps. And something like 63% of all, looking at a website or through an app is happening on the phone. It's not happening on a laptop or a desktop. So you do want to keep in mind that people are picking up their phone for just about everything. And the website has to really be usable on that platform.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. The last thing I wanted to point out is I'm really interested in the findings on the learning management system. That's really interesting to me because, again, my experience through now, 12 years of my kids in school has been, I have some that use all those platforms that you mentioned, Remind and all the different ones. The Play uses one, the English class uses something else. So, I mean, standardizing on that alone, I think would really solve a lot of those one-to-many communications.
Yeah, and I think too, again, they all offer lots of different things. So they can offer, if you need to just speak with the parents on bus 3 because the bus is late, that's a possibility right there. So that could be just one platform across the district that might meet your needs. It depends on what your needs are, but they offer a lot of different variables as well. And then you're only going to look in that one place for all the information.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I apologize for not having all of that information, but could you tell me just quickly, or if was there a request from within your survey or an expression of the parents looking for information directly from the school or directly from the teachers?
They mentioned things in different ways, and we sort of broke them out that way. But the real enthusiasm, I would say, in terms of the responses was, I just really love hearing from my kid's teacher. Like, they really like that. And they take that as official information, which we're going to say that is official information. It's right there from the classroom teacher.
Just add one thing. I'm actually impressed with the survey considering the amount of technological advances we've had in the last few years, right? I mean, think about pre-COVID and now Google Classroom is just normal. And right, we've had a huge amount of advances. So with all that considered, I think this is actually more impressive than I really thought it would have been. That being said, I think it drills down to our need to kind of simplify and, like you said, kind of streamline into certain platforms. So.
Well, and again, just with that thought quickly, teachers had to find a million ways to communicate. And so they're using it because it worked and people like it. But as a district, you also found things, but now there's a lot of platforms out there. So that streamlining might be a really helpful way to move forward.
Yeah, Susan, you mentioned something earlier regarding stakeholders. There's literally a number of different stakeholders that are going to be effective with any kind of change. So one thing I do want to comment is to say thank you to all those who currently created this system that we have now, right? I mean, this just didn't appear overnight. Friday folders, Steve, I'm sure you're highly involved with that, and whoever you assign it to. And then the IT department, not only do they have to worry about the hardware side of things or cybersecurity side of things, if there's something more complicated or convoluted, is it appropriate for IT to be managing something like this? I mean, I think Dr. Moore and I had a conversation where, IT can represent both the hardware, like all the Chromebooks and everything, and then the software side or the information side. And I think that in itself almost is another potential expense and, commitment that is going to be required and that we would have to sort of analyze financially to see how that would fit within our budget. So I think you were alluding to that earlier, is that if we as a district take on any changes that you may recommend, it's a lot more we'd have to take a more comprehensive approach because there's so many other stakeholders that would be involved in this, right? So
Exactly. And also with that, what they've already built, because much of what it's working. Your school messenger is working pretty well. It's the other platforms that are getting lost in there in that procedure. And that may be because they don't even know that platform's being used, right? So they can't really speak to that because it's happening somewhere else. So just to kind of to make that standard, but your current website is School Messenger. It's been bought by PowerSchool. PowerSchool just bought Schoology, which is a sort of learning management system. Some people like Schoology, some people don't, but there's evolution happening here. You may already have what you need in place because the platform you're using may have what you need. You have to look at it and evaluate if it meets your needs. And yes, it's going to affect people who have to service that. So you want to keep that in mind because everybody's stretched. You don't want to bury anybody. You want to make sure that everybody can work towards the goal.
There's a cost to it, right? So and then we have to decide how much that cost will be. So
Exactly.
the next thing is, the amount of information, like I was fortunate to get one of these color copies. The amount of information that's in here is tremendous. Now, the next question is, how do we make this actionable and then sort of get some end results out of that? We don't want this study or all this work to go to waste. And so I guess some of the next question is, what is our next steps? If the board reviews it and, we like the recommendations, then how do we then take that next step? Where do we put it under finance committee or something, or ops, so that we can see how much it might cost? One other question I also had is that with the workshop coming up in October, New Jersey School Board's workshop, they have hundreds of vendors out there, and I'm wondering if we can get like a one sheet paper that I could take down to school boards. And when I go talk to the vendors, I'm like, oh yeah, I need this, this, and this. Is this something that your company is capable of? Or some, that's something I would love to have if that's available. But Steve, it looks like you were about to jump in as well.
No, I think going from this larger report, we have to set up a couple goals for the next few years, right? Things that we can implement over the course of, say, 3 years. And also include so maybe the first year might be all free things that we already have that we just need to clean up. And then we budget for the new things, right? And so on. So I already sent Susan an email to set up a call with her. And what we'll do is we'll just look at it because, even so, with 80 pages, we have to, like you said, break it down to a page where there's some actionable items, some goals, and then start, chipping off some of those things like we do with a strategic plan. Basically, a strategic plan for technology. So that should help us. So we'll work on that. And I want to thank you guys too. I went to one of the meetings and probably just was annoying to everybody, right? But I, just bothering people. Then I, riled them all off and then walked out, just like I do in the pre-K rooms. But I
can't imagine, Steve.
Everybody else has to get everybody back in order, But these guys were having some great conversations, and I appreciate everybody doing it. Even though I was joking around a little bit, I do appreciate what you guys, what you did, all the hard work you did, and if 85% are happy and we could do something about the other 15%, that'd be great. And I also think, let's face it, some of this isn't brain surgery. Some of the stuff we do, we could do better. Right? We do have things all over the place, and some of our stuff's a little bit outdated. We can do some work on that. So again, appreciate all your time on this.
Great. Do any other board members have any last comments? Or thank you so much again for this presentation and all the hard work. So.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
So we'll go ahead and continue with the agenda. Superintendent comments. Steve, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Okay, so let's see what we have here. I sent you an email about the Mountain Lake superintendent looking for some help on some research. I got one back, which is nice. If we could get two, that'd be great. I think it's a pretty cool study too. I don't know if you saw it. If you read the email about the study, it's perceptions of superintendent board member relations. So I thought that might be a pretty interesting. I know Dino's like, we perceive it's good, but I don't know. He only lives down the street from me, so if it's not that good, you might have garbage in front of your house tomorrow.
I'll volunteer for that one. For
Yeah.
sure.
So that would be cool. I'll let him know that we have some people. Dino, if you're good, I'll let him know about you too. And thanks, Mike. If anybody else wants to do it, he said as many as possible, but he really would like to have at least two. So yeah, he's a good guy. He is retiring at the end of June, so he's moving on. And the new superintendent is a guy I mentored a few years ago from Upper Saddle River. So he'll be starting in July. And remember, we have a few things coming up, right? You have your DARE graduation coming up. You have that's on the 14th at Lakeview. Valley View's graduation's on the 17th at Morris Knolls. The last day of school is the 17th. That's this is June, by the way. And it's the last day of school is the 17th. We have still school this Friday because that was in the calendar. So no school Friday, Monday for Memorial Day. And I'm going to go see the Lakeview students sing at the Memorial Day event in Morristown Wednesday. It's the first time I'm getting a chance to do this, so I'm happy about that. And that's it for my comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Forte. I see that Dr. Cullis is not here. I hope she feels better. Ms. Gorowski, Business Administrator comments, please.
One comment, this coming year, we will have 2 openings for board election, and the deadline to submit application is July 29th by 4 p.m. Applications and information is on the district website. Hopefully you can find it.
Don't miss the,
Thank you very
don't miss
much.
the deadline.
Maybe if you can print it for us. Or well, anyway, we will now open it up for public discussion. It is 8:42 p.m. right now, so. Seeing no one online and no one in the chambers except for our wonderful Patrick, we'll go ahead and close it at 8:42 p.m. Old business action to be taken. Ms. Adelis, could you take us through that, please?
Surely. The following resolutions have been recommended by the Superintendent of Schools to the Board of Education for approval. I move to approve the following resolutions under old business. A, resolve that the board approve the following reports from April 2024, the Treasury of School Monies and the Board Secretary reports. B, education reports, report of student enrollment for April, report of health cases from April, HIB cases, VB13, VB14, and LV05, and the minutes from the April 8th and April 29th meetings.
I'll second.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Adelis,
Yes.
Dr. Abunaditasan,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Kim.
Yes. Dr. Arunajitasan, can you take us through personnel, please?
Certainly. If there is no objection, I'd like to move the following items under personnel. Item 1, I'd like to move as a block A through N. Don't think we have an addendum. So, and then item number 2 is the Denville administrator's contract, and item number 3 is the Keene University for the Nursing Department Clinical Program. And number 4 is the ESY program. And number 5 is leave of absence. Number 6, there's a employee resignation and a settlement agreement to go with it, and to rescind the earlier resolution as of April 29th.
I'll second.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Mr. Kim, if I may, I just want to congratulate Susan Stiles on her retirement from Lakeview.
Yeah, I wish to echo that as well. Thank you, Mr. Capello. All right, seeing no questions or comments, roll call, please.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Adelis,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Kim.
Yes. Okay, moving on to the agenda, Dr. Moore, instruction program, please.
Sure. I'd like to move for approval of the following resolutions under instruction and program. Number 1, workshops and expenses. 1A is a literacy coach going to the Writing Institute at the Reading and Writing Project. A teacher to attend virtually the best cutting edge strategies for teaching 5th grade. And another teacher to attend a STAR Lab training certification course through Raritan Valley Community College.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Adelis,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Kim.
Yes. Policy revisions. Mr. Capello, can you take us through that, please?
I'd be happy to. If there are no objections, I would like to move the policies and regulations listed. They are all for second reading and adoption. And they include equity in education, sportsmanship, equitable education opportunities, bilingual education, curriculum content, equity in schools, guidance counseling, reporting student progress, education, equity policies and affirmative action, equal employment and anti-discrimination, revising our policy around code of ethics and secret societies, also the prevention and treatment of sports-related concussions and head injuries, and finally, policies and regulations around vandalism and school district security.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Adelis,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Kim.
Yes. Mr. Anderson, D Finance, if you will.
Sure. Under D Finance, I'd like to move as a block items number 1 through 11. They include our typical checks list as well as the tax money schedule for the year. Garden State Environmental as our environmental consultant, professional services for our architect, as well as professional services for our audit services, professional services for legal services, professional services for legal services, special education legal counsel. What else do we have here? Special professional services, broker of record, as well as broker of record services for health benefits. And then finally, board approved the donation of $1,200 to the Valley View Middle School Mock Trial Club from Einhorn Barbarito attorneys. Dr. Forte mentioned that earlier today when the Person of the Year award was given. And then also approved the attached service agreement for E-rate consulting for the 2024-2025 school year in the amount of $4,500.
I'll second.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Adelis,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
No on the milk fund. Yes, and everything else.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Kim.
Yes. Mr. Cass, operations, please.
Be glad to. Nothing to talk about or approve for transportation. Item 2, building and grounds. 2.1, I'm asking the board to approve the attached agreement between Garden State Environmental and the Denville Board of Education in connection with the AHERA, NJRTK, and NJ-PEO SHA compliance services for fiscal year 2024-2025. Item 2.2, for the board to approve the attached agreement with Westchester Environmental LLC for lead and water testing district-wide for the 2024-2025 school year in the amount of $4,085. Item 2.3, asking the board to approve the attached bid award 01WSF-2024. Item 2.4, asking the board to approve the attached quote from Cashman Landscape Management for the district landscape maintenance services school year 2024-2025. On Thursday, May 9th, 2024, at 10 a.m., the Board of Education received one response to its advertisement seeking quotes for grass cutting and fall and spring cleanup for the period of July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. So the Cashman Landscape Management quote price was $42,340. Item 2.5, asking the board to approve a donation of $2,004.50 from the Denville Municipal Alliance to defray some of the costs of the Michelle Dickinson Staff Resiliency Program and keynote address for the 2024-2025 school year.
Could I get a second?
Second.
Oh, thank you. Questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Agelis,
Yes.
Dr. Aruna Jatasan,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Kim.
Yes. Okay, next part of the agenda is for the good of the cause, committee reports, correspondence, discussion items, such as meeting highlights and classroom space considerations. Dr. Ford, do you have your 3 bullet items for the meeting highlights?
I was asleep at the switch over here. I'm doing it now. What do you have?
Time.
I was going to do the persons of the year. And what else?
The communications presentation? And maybe the mock trial donation? Does anyone else have anything they would like to share?
I'd like to submit something for discussion.
Sure.
I know that we have Finance Committee, which includes technology, but at this juncture, is it appropriate to create a technology ad hoc for specific software, website redesign, and looking into this report?
Love to get more details and what direction you might be headed at. I mean, I know Steve and I talked about cybersecurity as well. So, you know, I do feel that there's that soft side of IT, right? Like the software side and everything else. Definitely open to it. We have a lot of, we actually have 2 or 3 ad hoc committees right now. So, you know, being that it's almost June, maybe we can start something in January, but I'd love to see the next steps after this committee report. You know, I'm wondering what the board member thinks, but I think it's a great idea. So, I mean, does any other board members have comments?
I do. I can tag right on the back, because I jotted a few notes there. Our goal setting is coming up. I know sometimes we search to find out the appropriate goals. So I just jotted a couple of things down here. I mean, first of all, there's a wealth of information in there. So I would see that as a goal. You know, when we get to it, there might be some other things that have a higher priority, but and a couple of key areas I picked up was like, you got to get rid of that duplication. It's terrible, and it's inconsistent sometimes. You have like the same topic, and some of it's old, some of it's half-baked, some of it's new. and Dino talked about it too, reduce the communications where it makes sense to do it. I mean, we want to make sure we communicate with everybody. But when you have all these, like an octopus, all these tentacles out there, which is the one that makes the most sense, or a couple that makes sense. And also the other thing, when you have all these different types of communications, are they all current at the same time? So, and there's probably some other things that we should adopt and implement, and let's get them done. So, you can kind of cross them off the list. They made recommendations, we listened, and we got it done.
Yeah, from my perspective, it's my belief that it's going to be, if it was a perfect world from my perspective, it would be, and of course, money was an issue. It would be an all-encompassing project that might be from a third party or third company, and they would manage the communications. Maybe not the content itself, but the connections between social media with the website, with the teachers' classrooms and Google Classrooms and everything else, all under one umbrella, and it's synchronized and it's smooth. So that if Dr. Forte needs to send out an announcement, everything can go, or if a teacher wants to send something to their classroom, it would all be funneled and disseminated to the appropriate parties or the recipients. So, but that to me means it might be a pretty penny. It might cost a lot. So.
Well, that was going to be one of the things that I suggested maybe we should do, is bring some vendors in to talk to, because the vendor I spoke to, it was not expensive at all. It was well under $20,000 to have all that accomplished, including the website design, and the yearly maintenance was only a few thousand, and they were claiming to handle everything. But I don't have all the right questions to ask, perhaps. So like maybe even if we had Susan here and we just brought one of these vendors in and grilled them for a while to find out if it's what we were really looking for, because as I said at our meeting earlier, they would handle the data migration and everything. And it sounds like the more we could get out of the hands of the IT department here, so they're not overworked, makes sense. So why not let people who, specialize in this do it all day long, all the time, only that, handle those sorts of things. And that particular vendor was it was a website with an app, and I believe like push notifications and that sort of thing was part of it. You just told them what you wanted to send out, and they took care of it. So like, to me, it's a no-brainer to bring somebody like that in and ask them questions.
Yeah, I think it's all good dialogue, and I think we're all focused on the same thing. I think this report has given Dr. Forte some feedback, and I think instead of us getting into the how, I would almost just kick it back to the administration. Not that Dr. Forte, I'm trying to give you more work on your plate, but let him come back with some ideas and plans to us on how we can kind of options we can look at. I think he's probably interpreting or kind of consuming the 81 pages too, and kind of thinking about has probably some great ideas. So
I was gonna remember what I said before. I'll meet with Susan. We'll go over this and we'll sketch out like a 3-year plan. What can we do? What kind of funding do we need? What are the vendors? Things like that. Kind of like a high level overview, and then we'll bring it to the committees because there's going to be money involved, right? And then if the board wants to have a committee to look at some of these things, we might be able to do that, or we might be able to use one of our standing committees to do that, or two of the standing committees. Maybe one handles the finance, i.e. the finance committee, and the other one handles the educational side. We probably put that in the curriculum committee, or if everybody feels strongly about it, we'll start a new one for that.
Is this something that we would have to go out to bid?
It would depend on a few things, right? Number one, if they had a contract. Number two, if it was a professional services thing, right? And then the other thing would be if they have a state vendor contract, or if it's over a certain threshold, which is 46,000,
44,000.
44,000. So if it didn't meet those criteria, then you have to go out to bid.
And most likely this is professional services, so it will be an RFP where you put the request out to the public and you do not have to select the lowest bidder, but you had to analyze it all.
Great, thank you.
No, the only other thing I'd like to add is that, I mean, it's a lot of what came out here does sound policy related, right? So this would be at some point, like, discussing what kind of policies for communication need to be in place in terms of, how teachers should be communicating or staff are communicating, what, I don't know, I wrote a list of things down here that sounded, sort of policy rich. So, it makes sense for us to look at that. And I will say again, I think it makes sense to, well, I already said it, so, but I will say it again anyway. I think we should look at vendors. It makes sense to not have the same people overworked trying to piecemeal it all together when, it can be done by someone, relatively inexpensively. So certainly less than trying to hire someone new to do it.
Yeah, and I think we have some of those policies, but it would be really good to take it off the shelf and look at them again because they were probably some years old. I brought a couple of concerns on staff social media to Dr. Forte, not of our staff in any way, shape, or form, actually quite the opposite. There was another school that it looked like it was a coach's page and it was actually a bunch of kids that created it and it posted some inappropriate content. And it was impossible if you looked at this social media page to be able to tell whose it was. So coming up with this may be a time to kind of look at it and maybe some wording needs to go in if it's going to be like their official page or something. There is some policy probably to look at, but I would say probably just a matter of kind of once we have the plan, we can maybe understand a little bit more as to kind of where we need to go as a board itself. But really good point.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add, this strikes me as a conversation that we had when Mike and I first joined the board and Steve was trying to wrangle in all of at that time, it was more hardware than anything else. We had teachers that had bought iPads or had been gifted iPads and they had other devices. And we kind of had this collection of different technologies going on. It was very hard for us to manage, but it was all with good intentions. It's just that it had happened ad hoc over time. I get the sense that I think we're there with our communications technology. We have teachers kind of doing things because they can and they can do it and it solves an immediate problem, but we really need an overarching strategy and we need to step back and think about that.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I agree 100% on that. So, okay. Any other comments that anyone else wants to share? All right. I was at the Delegate Assembly on Saturday. 14 resolutions was reviewed, and I don't know what the average is, Dino, but there was a lot of people saying that was unusually high. It had some interesting ones, some of which I believe we do need to that we should be concerned about. But the Denville resolution was passed, so I'm very happy about that. There was one about AI, policies and how districts should handle AI stuff. And one other resolution that I actually personally wanted was the whole virtual learning. So the school boards is going to take the position that, it shouldn't be limited, but we should have, if it's a reasonable amount and it makes sense, the district should be able to, instead of like if there's emergencies or snow days or whatever the reason is, be able to have virtual learning sessions instead of closing school. So the school boards is going to take that position. So thought that was interesting. Mr. Cash, you mentioned something about goals. I'm going to be sending out an email for us to self-evaluate as well. I had a meeting with Charlene, and during our June 24th meeting where we'll be setting new goals, I do believe that we should be also self-evaluating ourselves. So I'll send out emails to everyone so that you can provide your feedback on how you believe we performed this year. And I think committee minutes, I didn't see any, but for maybe for the next month, if we can make sure, I know I haven't sent my governance committee minutes out as well, so I am guilty. So, but if we can make sure that the next month's minutes are out, that'd be great. All right, so we will open it up for public comments at 9:05.
No one on the Google Meet.
Great, thank you. No, since no one's online and no one's in the chambers, we'll close it at 9:05 as well. Okay, it sounds like we do have a need for executive session. So, Mr. Capello, can you take us through executive, please?
I would be happy to, as soon as I can find the language. I move to convene an executive session in accordance with Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss negotiations, legal, security, or personnel issues. Minutes of this session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Okay, we are in executive at 9:06 p.m. And we will have no need